Hello, everyone. I just want to start off by extending a warm welcome to all of you joining our first live stream of the Sake Brewing Seminars. Just a quick reminder that there is a 30-second delay in order for YouTube to make closed captions possible. So just that we're not so much strangers, let me introduce myself. My name is Lucas Smolic, and some of you might know me as Junmai Gaijinjo on the Discord server. I've been a commercial sake brewer for a few years now, working breweries that range from completely modern to one that was over 150 years old. Today, I am representing a number of dedicated volunteers that have put a lot of work into making this possible. So if you'll just bear with me for one moment, I'm just going to give a quick overview of these seminars, and then we will introduce our first speaker. And following the presentation, there will be time for questions. So feel free to ask them in the chat, or you can ask them on the Discord server if you're a part of it. Finally, there will be a list of the upcoming seminars at the end of the broadcast and a link to the Discord server to continue the discussion. So, okay, let's get started. So what we are doing here today and in the seminars to come is part of an extremely aspirational vision that we have at brewsake.org. Quite simply, as most people are aware, there are very few resources for learning about sake brewing unless you speak Japanese. And the books we do have access to often leave out a lot of context. So about 3 years ago, I began searching for people willing to learn together and stumbled upon a small group of home and commercial brewers on a sake chat group. It was a great resource, but it still felt like we were lacking community. So I scheduled a Zoom call, one of those Zoom calls in the middle of the pandemic that we all loved so much, and invited brewers to join. It was fantastic. We did this a few more times, and soon we started to know each other better. We started to be able to talk more openly about the challenges that we were facing. We started to identify areas that none of us knew about. And we've continued these Zoom calls every week for 3 years. And we started to collect what we've learned on a website called brewsake.org. In just over 1 year, we had over 5,000 brewers, sake brewers from 50 different countries download our resources and articles, and hundreds have joined our sake chat group and Zoom calls. This year, we will be releasing a few other very exciting resources for you, so please stay tuned. Today, we continue in that educational journey in the same spirit with which it all began. These seminars are intended as an exchange of information so that our community will continue to grow and we can all become better brewers together. So, whether you operate in a garage or a 3,500-meter facility, we all have things to learn, and this is just a platform to begin discussions. So, for those of you who dream of opening a brewery, and those of you who are excited to start your first batch, we hope that these seminars will keep you motivated, curious, and willing to share your experiences. A quick note about the seminars. We've asked each presenter to choose a topic they feel passionate about or areas they have achieved market success with. Many have extensive experience or have conducted specific research, making them our industry experts. They will explain problems they've encountered and how they solved them. We will hear from brewers who have pursued entirely organic and zero waste approach to brewing, who have maximized their production space through creative solutions like using like square fermentation tanks. We're going to hear from brewers who are using the same rice and yeast that you have access to. We will hear how they manage to work with those raw materials and scale their businesses while maintaining quality. And of course, we will also hear how to start your brewery. So personally, I hope that these seminars generate lots of discussion. I hope that you ask questions, you challenge observations, and help us to take one more step towards making sake a global phenomenon. We made a very conscious decision to make these seminars free so that all of you could participate, and we want you to do just that, participate. So without further ado, I want to tell you a little bit about our first speaker and my teacher, Dr. Chiaki Takahashi. You have almost certainly heard of her brewery, Islander Sake, on the island of Hawaii. Dr. Takahashi and I met almost 3 years ago, and I will never forget how easily she explained the science behind the complexities of sake brewing. After a wonderful conversation about our mutual love for this tradition, she said to me, I want to teach you how to make great sake, and then let us together share that information with everyone around the world. Well, how do you say no to that? This is a phenomenal thing to hear. So, this past fall, I spent several months working beside Dr. Takahashi as her apprentice. The most notable takeaway for me was the word stress. That all organisms are motivated by stress. And thinking about fermentation in this way made me realize how important it is to understand which factors lead to the results I want and don't want. So I think we're going to hear a little bit about that today. And this is definitely going to be a great talk. Very excited to hear all of your questions as well. Please let me introduce my teacher, my friend, and one hell of a brewer, Dr. Chiaki Takahashi.
Hi, Chiaki.
Hi.
How are you today? Uh,
Hi,
also,
good.
also because you have Tama Hirose with you today, I also want to introduce Tama as well, who's the vice president of Islander Sake. Um, a really quick, before we get into the whole presentation, and I know we're trying to keep on time here because I know you and I have a tendency to go off and spend a lot of time talking about things. First of all, since I'm sure everyone wants to know, how's the weather in Hawaii today?
Today is a little bit windy, but now I'm sitting on at the poolside. Yeah, very nice.
So it's nice.
Nice Sunday. Yeah.
I know this is the first seminar, but I've been thinking about questions to ask each host to get to know them before we jump into a presentation. So if it's okay with you, I just want to ask you a couple quick questions. Um, would you mind telling us just a little bit about your background and how you got into sake brewing?
Um, yeah, I used to be work at the medical center, and I main job is I try to make the medicine for the stress disease like a eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, and then I always kill the mice and rats for the experiment, but soon it's very stress for the experiment makes me very stressed, and then after work I start to drink sake, and then releasing the stress, and then I think, or maybe I should change my job. And when I was 40 years old, I changed my job from medical researcher to sake maker. And first, I went to a university of Yamanashi. Yamanashi is the wine country in Japan. And I study enology first, and then go to the sake world. And finally, I work at the National Institute Sake Brewing. It belongs to the taxation office in Japanese government. I, I, uh, my work is to teach how to make sake and wine to the younger generation in the Japanese brewer. So the Japanese sake brewing is usually in winter. So my seminar is the summertime. So summertime in Tokyo. And the Tokyo is the summer is very hot and humid, like Hawaii. So I think, oh, maybe I can make sake in Hawaii. And then I moved to the Hawaii and I make sake.
That's awesome. Do you have anything right now that you're experimenting with, or any kind of stuff that you're sort of new things you're working on in the brewery?
Uh, Unfortunately, now my chiller is breakdown,
Oh
and
no.
now, yeah. So I I put some hot pot at the cooking pot. 60 liter is hot cooking pot in a pressing room and making using the AC. I make 5 batch of small sake. Yeah, of course, I try to sell that particular sake to the customer. But now, maybe 12 days today, I think. So one more week, I need to ferment. But almost the surface is almost finished base. So and then good smell is coming from the tank. So I think maybe we can sell.
That's
So,
awesome.
so I try to more like warm weather and without the chiller machine, we try to make sake. And now I try to make kijoshu in a little AC room like a living room, the
Yeah.
temperature. But if the adding the sake, the yeast is suddenly very surprised and their activity is very going down. So the fermentation is so slow, so we can control without the chiller machine, I think. And now I explain. And then so far it's good.
So interesting. I'm actually looking forward. I know you talked about trying to get more home brewers to try to use the Kijoshu method because of how
Yes.
well it ferments at room temperature. So I'm really excited for us to eventually put out a recipe for that and get people to try it. Um, One more question I'm going to have for you, and then I'm going to kick you over to your slides so that you can start presenting. Um, do you have a favorite category or bottle of sake? Like, do you have a category of sake that you prefer, that's something you like to specialize in?
Um, I like more like a Daiginjo style sake, but recently at nighttime I serve the food also. So
Mm.
I make sake and the food. So now I serve to the nigori sake to the customer,
Mm.
and and then and then I serve also the red wine. So red wine and nigori sake is very good matching. And then I try to drink many times the nigori sake and red wine. And now I like to the nigori sake much more.
That's really interesting. Well, thank you for sharing all of this with us. I know it caught you a little off guard with that, but like I said, I think it's also kind of good. Just we are building a community here, and um, it's good for everyone to get to know each other. So without waiting too much time, I'm going to pop open your screen now and let you share your slides. And if you need me, I'm just going to be right here to pop in, and we can talk about stuff if we need to. Yeah, I'm excited, and I think everyone else does too. So let me just throw your slides up. Okay?
Yes.
So,
Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the meeting. I think today's listener is almost home brewer and some commercial brewer. I used to teach how to make sake, but it's very small quantity and very small batch of sake. So I really like to make a small batch of sake. So I think people really like to make the small batch of sake, but the outcome, the sake is really tastes good. So this is my goal. So today, uh, the seminar help your sake brewing, but I cannot speak English very well. So from now on, I talk in Japanese and Tama translate my English.
okay.
日本語に変わります。酒屋満流という言葉があるんですけど、お酒にいろんな作り方が、どんな作り方でもお酒はいいよっていう、言葉で私の大好きな言葉です。
The Japanese left hand side of screen, Sakaya Manryu. Sakaya is the liquor store, and Manryu is there are the various way to get to the goal.
私がこの、今日のセミナーを通して伝えたいことが2つあって、1つは、お酒を作っているときにどんな微生物がそのタンクの中、または麹作っているときとか、どんな微生物がどこで働いているのかということを必ず考えながら、お酒作りしてもらいたいな。
So even though there are many various way of making sake, I like you to think the two very important fact. One is where and how and what type of yeast you are using. You have to choose it.
もう一つは、少しのストレス、たくさんストレスをかけると人間と同じように死んでしまうんですけど、ある程度のストレスをかけることによって、酵母とか微生物全体の、仕事の効率がすごく良くなるということを覚えておいてほしい。
So as Lucas mentioned, Chiaki is a researcher, used to be researcher on the stress disease. And so during the process of making sake, she always think about how much stress we're going to put on the yeast. Just like human, if you have too much stress, you're going to be die. But an adequate amount of stress is actually good. So for sake making, we're going to think about how you're going to put the stress on yeast.
まず最初に皆さんも知っているように、お酒は米と水と微生物によって全ての、お酒の味とそれから香りが作られている。
So left hand side, you see the koji and yeast. These two together making the different type of the aroma and the flavors of sake.
で、それ以外に、麹とイースト以外に乳酸菌とか、あと他の微生物も働いているようなものが最近特に木本とかヤマハイとかが流行っているのであるんですけれども、その話はまた別の機会にすることにします。
In recent years, more in the US, more people looking for the kimoto or
ヤマハイ
Yamahai type of sake. People really interested about that. But when we started talking about Yamahai or Kimoto, we are sure we're gonna run out of time for today. So we not gonna talk about it, but rather we like to talk the traditional koji and yeast combination.
この、写真、この絵は、わざと日本語になってるんですけど、これは重要でないから実は日本語のままにしてるんですけども、こういった麹の経過っていうのが、一般的にあるんですけれども、これについて私が重要なことだけは話そうかなと思っています。
So she's using this data of the graph from the Kawashimaya, which is the one of the koji maker. It's in Japanese. Why? Because she thinks for today's topic, it's not so important. So that's why she just left everything in Japanese.
で、私が、この麹作りのことで、まず最初にちょっと麹作りはすごく大事なので、麹作りについてちょっと数分話をしようかな。
Koji making is so important. Let me give you some talk for a few minutes.
さっきの経過簿の、イメージを皆さん見たことがあるので、そのイメージについて想像しながら話をしてほしいんですけども。
You already have seen the graph before the previous pages. Temperature goes up and down during the process of koji making.
一番大事なのは、まず種付けの時に30度を下回らない方がいい。
Okay, so let's talk about the process from the beginning to the end. So the most important thing is very beginning stage when you spraying the powder of koji over the steam rice. The temperature has to be 30 degrees Celsius at least. This is so important.
でそこからだいたい21日、24時間ぐらいすると、皆さん森の状態になるんだけれども、その24時間ぐらいの間に その最初の種をつけた時の温度から2度ぐらい上がるまで必ず待つようにしてください。時間とか関係ない。
So it's not matter of the how long, but rather the temperature goes up 2 degrees from 30 degrees. That's the important thing.
2度ぐらい上がったら、そこから、箱または床麹っていうのにしていくんですけど、それから、だいたい40度、まで、上げて、そして40度から、10時間から12時間ぐらい引っ張って、そしてデ麹するっていうのが一般的だと思うんですけれども。
So when the temperature rose, you're going to separate the big rice bowl into the separate wooden boxes, and then keep the temperature much higher, 40 degrees and 42. You see that there is a yellow and orange temperature range, and each range has a different purpose. For the protein or orange section for the starch breakdown. So these processes are taking place in each different temperature range.
で、最終的に40度までの間はホットエンドヒューミッドな部屋がすごく大事。
So as you see the top of the graph, the left side says hot and humid, the other side hot and dry. So during the first low temperature period, it's going to be hot and humid. But later, the room, cozy room must be dry out.
これは皆さんも知っているように、米の表面を乾かして、そして中の湿ったところに麹がどんどん入っていくっていう状態を作るために、ドライにするんですけど。
Okay, purpose of this is koji making takes about 24 hours or more. First day, no, I'm sorry. First day is humid, so that's why the outside of rice is all wet. But when second day, when the temperature goes up, at the same time the humidity we make it goes down, and then so the surface of rice is going to be dry. The koji, in order to survive, they have to go into inside of the rice where still moistureness is there.
これが同じ表なんですけれども、それをもう少し細かく酒の作りに特化してちょっと話をしてみようかな。
This is a more detailed graph of the temperature just for purpose of sake making.
この黄色いところに絵が描いている35度か37度ぐらいの間っていうのは、タンパク質分解酵素が作られる、時間になる。
So as you can see, the yellow temperature range from 95 to 99 Fahrenheit, during this period, the protein breaking down process takes place.
でそのところを短い時間でもっと40度までオレンジ色のラインまで上に上がるか、ゆっくり上げていくかによって、最初に赤い線で示したのと青い線で示したのとで時間が違うのが分かりますよね。
There are two processes. As you see, the red line goes up the temperature quick, and the blue line temperature rose slowly. These are the two techniques when you make a sake. The red one is for daiginjo, and the blue one is for junmai, because you can see the red line goes through the yellow temperature range quick. Just quickly goes up to the orange time zone. I'm sorry, the temperature zone. But the blue one takes longer time going through the yellow temperature zone.
なので、時間が例えば何分とか何時間とかそういう時間で区切るんではなくて、温度、今麹がどういう状態にあって、今どういう仕事をしているかということに意識して考えていれば、おのずと時間が3時間とか4時間とか5時間とか、それぞれの人、それからそれぞれのお酒のタイプによって変わっていくことが分かりますよ。
There is no fixed time length for each koji making style, but rather the temperature is so important. How quickly or how slow you going through the yellow range makes the big difference. So outcome is some koji is good for Daiginjo, some is good for Junmai.
うんで、で、そのオレンジのラインっていうのは、そこは、糖分ができる、糖分を作るための酵素ができる部分なので、これに関しては必ず十分取らないと、お酒のアルコールもできないし、アルコールができないということは香りとか味わいとかにも影響してきますので、そこは必ず10時間ぐらいとかを必ず取るようにしてください。
So
オレンジのライン。
the orange temperature zone, you have to spend a long time, like 10 hours of doing the process of making a starch breakdown because this is a important process for let the koji making sugar inside of tank later. So if you don't spend enough time, like 10 hours, you will see the kind of the どんなダメなところ
あまりアルコールが少な
So
だ
the
から
alcohol
溶け
is
が
not alcohol content is not strong enough, or the dissolving the rice in the tank is not adequate. Many bad side effects you will see. So you must spend the time like 10 hours during the orange temperature zone.
で、今緑に示したその最初の1日目のところっていうのは、ここは特に他のワイルドイーストとかが入るコンタミネーションが起こる時間なので非常に気をつけてほしいなと。
So the green circle she just pointed during this time is a very, the kind of risky time. The many contamination could take place. So you should be very careful about those things, clean clothing, using the gloves, and of course you sanitize and use a clean table and so on.
じゃあ、この例えば布が汚れていたりとか、または汚い手で触っていたりとかっていうと、どういうことになるかというと、一番大きな良くないことっていうのは、一つはやっぱりちょっとスモーキーな香り、または薬箱を開けた時のような薬の匂いみたいな匂いがしてきます。またあとね、なんかその酒の切れが悪くなる。
Okay. So what kind of bad thing gonna happen if you don't clean the koji room enough? One is a smoky flavor, or Chiaki explained the kusuribako. Kusuribako is a kind of box. So many different type of medicine, medicine for the stomach and headache or whatever. So you put the many medicine into the box of medicine, and when you open the box, you feel the many smell at once. That type of smell comes out, and also that when you taste the final product of sake, you probably feel the ending part of the tasty taste is not sharp. Those kind of bad things gonna happen if you don't clean the koji room enough.
Apple Music のライブラリで TWICE の Batting If You Don't Clean DR コージローミナが見つかりませんでした。ラジオステーションを再生する。
Okay.
ごめんなさい。麹もう一つすごく大事なのは、最近いろんなタイプの麹が日本の麹屋さんから売られているので、その情報とかで自分たちが例えば大吟醸を作るとか純米を作るとかっていうので選ぶのももちろん重要なんですけど、その選んだものをさっきのような、作り方をして作ったらいいんじゃないかと。
Okay, so Chiaki trusts the koji manufacturer in Japan, 5 or 6 of them. She always talk to them, and they will make a recommendation which type of koji you should use for different purpose. So once you get the koji, by getting the recommendation from the koji manufacturer, you will follow the procedure I just explained in previous pages, then you will get a good sake.
で、あともう一つ、皆さんがよく使う言葉で、麹菌が最後まで生きてるみたいに考えてる人もすごく多いんですけれども、残念ながらラクティックアシッドを入れたりとか、アルコールが中でできてくるので、タンクに入った麹菌はあっという間に死んでしまっています。
Many of you already experienced the entire process of sake making, and sometimes misunderstanding happens. So Chiaki pointed out, koji body or koji itself actually die down fairly quick in the fermentation tank. It will not last from the beginning to the end of the fermentation period in the tank. So rather, the koji enzyme lasted until the last moment.
で、その麹の酵素に関しては、ずっとタンクの発酵中も生きてますし、そして最後の最後、酒のボトルに詰めた後もずっと火入れをしなければずっと生き続けているということを覚えています。
So until you do the pasteurization or heat process, the koji enzyme alive throughout the fermentation period and also bottling, sake bottling process, koji enzyme lives till the last.
で、そのパスチュライゼーションによってしか、死なないということ
So only pasteurization makes the koji enzyme.
の働きがない。
Koji enzyme, the performance stopped.
それから、次、サッカロマイセセレビジエ、酵母について話そうと思っています。
Now we're moving on to the yeast.
サッカロマイセセレビジエっていう酵母の種類なんですけど、この種類にはもちろん酒コマーシャルのイーストもいれば、それからワインで使う酵母、それからパン屋さんで使う酵母、それから一般的に自然から私たちが取るような酵母も含まれている。
So within this type of yeast, there are variety of yeast for sake, for wine, or making the bread, or the wild yeast from the nature. There are many various type within this type of yeast.
で、例えばワインの酵母っていうのは、サルファに強いものを選んでいる。
So when you're picking the wine yeast, you pick something strong against the sulfur.
それから、パンの酵母っていうのはできるだけ炭酸ガスがいっぱい出てパンが大きく膨らむようにものを選んでいる。
So bread maker, it will make 炭酸だからなんだっけ？
カーボンダイオキサイド。
Yeah, carbon dioxide. Something produce more carbon dioxide, so that make bread bigger. That's ideal.
それと同じように、じゃあ、酒コマーシャルイーストっていうのはどんなものを選んでるかっていうと、まずアルコールの生産量が非常に高いもの。
But for sake maker, what's the advantage of using sake yeast is to produce the alcohol content makes higher.
それからオフフレーバーがない。
And no off or unwanted flavor.
それから、どういう酵母を使えばどういうアロマ香りがするかということがある程度分かっているので、自分たちが作りたい、例えばリンゴの香りのするとかバナナの香りがするとかっていうそのものを選べるっていう点もいい。
And the biggest advantage is we Japanese, during the long history, we already identified which yeast produce more apple-like or other type of fruits alike, which yeast produce what type of aroma, we already identified.
それからもう一つ重要なことが実はあって、酵母がいると麹菌のその酵素の活性が非常に高くなることが分かっているので、この2つのを 麹の酵素と、酵母を一緒にするってことは、酵母にとっても、麹にとってもすごくいいっていうふうに言われている。
酵母と麹。
麹菌の組み合わせがとってもいい。
Okay, yeast and also koji itself?
エンザイム。
Okay, koji enzyme itself. Koji enzyme. So the combination of yeast and koji enzyme, these two together is a very ideal making good sake. You already know. So this combination is very important.
それに対して、例えば最近流行っているその野生酵母って言われるようなものがあるんですけど、それは多分私が外に出て花を取ってくると、今下にちょっとあるようなトロロスポラとか、そういったここに書いてあるような酵母は簡単に取れるんですが、なかなかそれをお酒作りに生かそうとしてもちょっと難しい。
So we're talking about the bottom half of this page. So she just explained the sake yeast. And now right hand side, what about the wild yeast? There are many of them, and actually easily you can get the wild yeast around you. So in Hawaii, Chiaki is doing it, and you can do it, especially first two wild yeast are listed there. There are plenty. これいっぱいいるってこと。
で、トロロスポラとかはワインの発酵でも使っていて、その酵母と例えばサッカロマイセスを一緒に使うと、より香りが高くなるとかっていうようなことがワインで言われているので、おそらくお酒でもそういう効果があるんじゃないかと思って今私は実験している。
So the first one, Tolorospora, is good for wine and wine making. And so this and this Tolorospora and the Saccharomyces together possibly good for sake making. So that's why Chiaki is experimenting now.
ただそのピチアとかは、非常にマニキュア落としみたいな匂いがすごくバナナの強いような匂いがしてきたりとか、あとその3つ目にあるような酵母になるとちょっと人間にあまり体に良くないっていうものもあるので、だから全てがワイルドイーストを全て使ったらいいというわけではなくて、いくつかの酵母をきちんと選んで使うべきだろうなというふうに思います。
But one word of caution because first one very much promising, but second one, Pichia, produce a very heavy banana-like smell, and also なんで良くないんだっけ？
あとだからそのバナナとかと除光液みたいな。
Oh, and when lady using the nail color remover, you get a strong smell. That type of unwanted smell you get. And also the third one, fourth one, those wild yeast were sometimes kind of harming or bad for the human body. So, of course, you don't want to use those.
だから全てのワイルドイーストを使って何でもいいというんじゃなくて、ある程度自分たちのコントロール下にやっぱり置くことが大事なんじゃないかなと思う。
So picking the wild yeast is a fun thing to do, but you have to identify which wild yeast you actually caught. Otherwise, you end up, something undesirable situation. So you have to identify what type of wild yeast you catch.
ということで、その私たちが使う酒イーストに戻って話をしたいと思う。
Okay, now go back to our familiar Saccharomyces sake yeast.
皆さんが知っているように、米のでんぷん、スターチは、麹の酵素によって、糖分に変わって、そしてその糖分をイーストがアルコールに変えるっていうことは、皆さんよく知ってると思うんだけど、ここで出てくる、酵素の話はちょっと置いといて、まずこのアルコールっていうのができた。このアルコールはただの、人を酔わせるものだけではなくて、まずこのアルコールには甘さと、または強くなると苦さ、それから、濃くなると、アルコールが高くなるとコクになる。コクっていうのは日本語なんですけど、英語でもよく使われているので。
Okay, so
厚みっていう。
so atsumi
厚みってか。
thick.
そうそう。
はい、よかった。so when you making sake, okay, we explain to the customer the koji enzyme breakdown, the starch, and then get the sugar in the tank, and yeast start eating the sugar and produce alcohol. And alcohol is not just make people drunk, but also gives sweetness or sometimes the
薄いとスイート
yeah
ネス。アルコールが高くなるとビタネス。
okay. But when the alcohol content is lower, you get sweetness. But alcohol content is higher, you get bitterness.
それから
And also she said atsumi, which is kind of thickness in flavor.
それをコクって日本語では
So in Japan, it said koku. Koku is the thickness in flavor.
それからアルコールと一緒にまあできるものとして、まあ、グリセロールっていうのがあるんですけど、よくワインでこうグラスにつくとこうディスクって言われるこうちょっとドロンってしたような透明なもの、これがお酒にもあるんですけど、これはやはりスイートネス、甘さとあとコクを与える。
So glycerol also produced from the yeast is make it just like when you're drinking the wine, the surface of the wine glass, you see the the old wine lands. It's not kind of a thick the lines of flow of the wine on the surface of wine glass, something like that, also produced by yeast.
これは甘みとかその
This
コク
leads to the sweetness とか。
コクコク
and also again thickness or koku, which is the thickness of flavor.
あとはこのアルコール以外に、糖分から、有機酸、オーガニックアシッドも作られるということが分かる。で
And also organic acid produced.
でそのオーガニックアシッドは、まあ、その酸味、アシリティとか旨味の元になる。
Okay, so the organic acid contributing to give you the acidity. So meaning, oh, this sake is tart or a little bit, the sour, or umami. Also, you can get from the organic acid.
なので、まずそのアルコールどのぐらいに作りたいかっていうのもすごく重要で、それはその今言ったような味わいにすごく
So tell me how much alcohol content of the how heavy you want to set the alcohol contents. Let me know, then we can discuss.
それと
Here's your plan.
でそれとは別に、その作ったできたアルコールと、まあ、有機酸、オーガニックアシッドが一緒になると、まあ、エステルになるんだけど、まあ、こういうエステルのようなアロマコンポーネントっていうのは、大抵が味わいではビタネス。いい匂いなんだけど、ビタネス。苦味があるので、アロマティックになればなるほど、その苦い、実は酒が苦い。
So these kind of things coming out after the yeast work in the tank, then you will get a good aroma from the tank. However, when sake becomes more aromatic, also you get some bitterness. It's also outcome set to the aroma.
だから大吟醸っていうのは非常に甘いっていうのをみんな気づいてると思うんだけど、大吟醸の香りは非常にいいんだけど苦味を持っているので、その苦味をカバーするために実は少し甘いというフィニッシュが最終的に甘いお酒になっているのは、まあ、この苦味を実は
Yeah, so Daiginjo is which is of course aromatic sake, but because of the we produce aroma, we also produce the bitterness. That's why the sake brewer need to cover the bitterness by sweetness. So that's why many of you tasted Daiginjo, you feel, oh, this sake is sweet, because trying to cover the bitterness at the same time, when we try to produce aroma, we have to cope against the bitterness. So that's why we're making the sake a little more sweeter. So that's why you get the sweet daiginjo.
それから、ちょっとここで、酵母の、仕事について話をしたいと思います。
Now, moving on to the yeast, the activity.
もともと人間もそうなんですけど、こう空気があるエアロビックの状態では人間も酵母も呼吸をして、でその呼吸をすることによって、糖からエネルギーを取り出している。
So just like human, when the living thing is working, so human is the same thing. When they are breathing or respiration, you get sugar.
違う違う、砂糖分を使って、
Yeah, using the sugar to get the energy.
でそのエネルギーを取り出すその仕事の時に炭酸ガスと、水ができる。
So during the process of changing the sugar to the energy, there will be the byproduct carbon dioxide and water.
この時に、出るエネルギーというのはすごく大きいっていうふうに覚えておいてください。
So just remember this kind of respiration process, you get big energy outcome.
でそれに対して、空気がない状態になると、人間は空気がないところではまず死んでしまうんだけど、イーストは空気がない状態でも生きていくことができる。
Okay, so now right hand side, there is one more process called fermentation. So if human goes to the place like without air, space, people die, but the yeast can survive even there's no air or oxygen.
でその時に、彼らがその糖をエネルギーに変えるんだけど、その時のエネルギーっていうのはそのリスピレーションに比べてすごく少ない。
Okay, so when the air is cut off to the east, they will start changing the. They also trying to use the sugar to get the energy, but as you can see the graph, the byproduct is carbon dioxide, but not water, but rather alcohol will be produced. However, in this process, the output energy is much smaller.
でこの右側の活動をいわゆるアルコール発酵というふうに言う。
So we call it in Japanese alcohol 発酵 or fermentation, alcohol fermentation. So the yeast without air, the process produce the alcohol, but remember the energy is much smaller.
でこのアルコール発酵をさせるためには今言ったようにまずアンエアロビックな状態にするということが重要。
Okay, so to let the yeast start ferment, you have to be the anaerobic, which is air needs to be cut off.
だけどまずその前にまず最初に例えば酒母の時とかは、まず数を増やすということをしなければならない。その自分の酵母をまず増やすというのが、酒母の場合は一番大事なんだけど、その時には、この呼吸を優位にしてエネルギーをたくさん取り出すことによって、その自分の娘細胞をどんどん増やしていく。
So during the fermentation, making of a fermentation starter, the multiplying the yeast is the most important task. And then during that time, we use the respiration.
そして大きなエネルギーを取り出して。
When we get the big energy from the respiration,
でそのエネルギーを使って子供を
and
増や
using
す。
that energy, the big energy will be used for multiplying or making more yeast.
そしてある程度増えたところで、その増えた酵母によってこのアルコール発酵を始めるというような状態。
Once we make more yeast, then we moving on to the fermentation, using those large number of yeast to let them do the fermentation process.
それが、いわゆる酒の作りなので、最初の酒母、または、タンクの時は添えとか中とか止めの時っていうのは、まず一番最初に大事なのは、酵母に呼吸をさせてエネルギーを取り出して、もう数を増やすということ。
So as you already understand, so we slowly start sake making process and let the yeast grow during the slow process. The real reason is first we have to let the yeast do the respiration and make more yeast and then move on to the fermentation. You have to know these two processes are different, but always respiration first and make more yeast and then move on to the fermentation process.
なので、脂肪の時、または、添え中止めの時は、なるべくこうかき混ぜるして、自分たち人間がこうかき回すタンクをかき回すことによってこう空気をこう。
So what we can do is let mix the fermentation inside of fermentation tank during the first period of time. So let the air goes in. So let yeast do the respiration more.
だけど発酵が普通のタンク発酵が始まって、例えば5日ぐらいからしたあとはその空気が酸素とかがない状態にしなければいけないので、まあ、こうかき回し続けるというのはあまりいいことじゃない。
So during the first, three step, the adding process, naka soe tome, during that time, give more air. But later, maybe 5 days or later, then you want yeast move on to the fermentation process, meaning don't give the air goes into the mash. So stop blending the fermented rice of the tank. Let the you have to cutting off the air for the mash.
そして、これは実はこれは別に覚える必要も全然ないんだけど、
You don't have to remember all these little things.
だけどそのエネルギーを取り出すという、まあ、過程においては、実はそのエネルギーを取り出す過程において、体の中でいろんなオーガニックアシッドができているということだけ覚えておいてほしい。
But Chiaki just want you to know during the process, so many organic acids produced during the process. So it's not just single outcome. You will get many acids coming out during this process.
じゃあどんなのができるかって言ったら、まあ、ここにある実はラクティックアシッド以外のそのサクシネイトとかマレートとかこの下にあるこういうものがまあできてくる。
So you can see the most of left hand side from lactic acids to other acids are produced during the process.
で特にそのサクシネイトとかマレートとかこのはこの今のその呼吸またはアルコール発酵によって、まあ、こういうのができる。
So succinate and malate are mostly produced by the fermentation process
とあと呼吸が。
and respiration process.
でそのオーガニックアシッドはさっき言ったようにアルコールと一緒になると、まあ、フルーツのアロマがしてさっき説明したと。
オーガニックアシッド。もう一回言って。
オーガニックアシッド、さっき説明したようにオーガニックアシッドとアルコールが一緒になるとエステルになってこういう下のような香りのする。
So the previously she mentioned organic acid and ethanol alcohol together we makes the ester. It's become the aroma of sake.
で、こういうリンゴとか、そういう、
So you get apple, banana, melon, pear
みたいなものが。
type of the aroma you can get.
ちょっと話が変わる、ここからちょっとだけちょっと話が横にずれるんだけど、実は米を磨く話をもちょっとしたいなと思っているので、ちょっと挟
I
みます。
just wanted to mention a little bit about the polishing ways.
実は、例えば、50% の、大吟醸を作ろうとすると、それでも60% のプロテインは残るよね。
So let's say we're gonna polish up to 50%. So half of outside throwing away, but still you get 60% of protein remain.
で、この残ったタンパク質は、麹の酵素によって、アミノ酸に変わっていく。
So these protein will be changed by the koji enzyme.
で、その時に2つの、麹のエンザイム、違う種類のエンザイムによって変わっていくんだけど、そのアミノアシッドが1つのこのグリーンのボールだとしたら、最初はこうプロテインなので、全部アミノアシッドが全部くっついてる。
Okay, so there are two type of enzyme within the koji, and the first one, left hand side, you see the many green little balls are all chained up.
それはプロテインの意味なんだけど、
So this is the protein.
でそのプロテインをどっかでこう
So
ハサミで
protein
プロ
will
テアー
be
ゼ、
cut off by Caesar, which is a koji enzyme.
プロテアーゼ
Will try to make a little green ball separate by cutting the koji Caesar.
で、その状態をペプタイドっていう、3つか4つつながってる状態を、ペプタイ
Okay, so the once cut off, only little group, only few green balls group will be made. Those called the peptide.
ド。でこのペプタイドは実はお酒にすごくたくさん含まれていて、
So peptide are included within the sake so much.
ここにあるようにビールとかワインよりも酒にたくさん含まれているのが分かるよね。
Yeah, compared to beer and wine, you see the sake has much more peptides.
で、前に戻ります。
Okay, go back to the first picture.
で、このペプタイドっていうのにも味わいがあって、うまみとかビタネスとかスイートネスとかに関係するような味わいがあって、さらにアミノ酸一つに、さらにこの麹のエンザイムによって最終的に一つのアミノ酸に戻った時もこのようなその味わいっていうのがあるので、タンパク質がたくさんあるということは、そのたくさんのこの味わいがあるということを意味します。
Okay, if there is a more protein within the sake, meaning you see the peptide, peptide gives the human umami, bitterness, and sweetness. And also, when these are the breakdown to the amino acids, still there's the umami, bitterness, sweetness, and acidity. So you should know the sake has more protein, meaning because of these the action of the koji enzyme gives more of the flavor to the human.
なので、このお酒の味わいについて言えば、その大吟醸とか純米で見ると、アミノ酸のがどうしても純米の方がミーディングレートが大きいので、多くなるので、味が深くなる。
So when we say why the taste of sake are so different between Daiginjo and Junmai, you see more protein left, and then it reads the more amino acid high. So that's why the flavors are different.
また、ここで今のはちょっと味わいなんだけど、今度は香りのことを説明するためにはちょっとストレスの話を、しなければならないと私は思います。
Okay, I just explained to you about the flavors. Now we talked about aroma, but when we talk about aroma, we have to talk about stress.
ちょっとこの絵は実はちょっとイメージの絵なんだけど、
You can tell, okay, from the brown rice, we polish the rice in various percentage. And this is just you giving you the example of how which milling rate affect the outcome of outcome.
違
Yeah.
う違う。だから90%の、お米っていうのは、普通のテーブルライスに当たるんだけど、テーブルライスの場合は、スターチと一緒にプロテイン、魚を今私は絵に描いてるんだけど、プロテインとそれからリピッド、脂肪分がある。
Okay, so for the
イメージ。
90% polishing ratio, meaning just eating rice, so you
Table.
get just plain taste, not only plain taste, you get more of the flavor of, for example, fish and beef are presented, which means protein, and
ビーフは
and
リピッド。
beef is more
Fat,
of fat. Yeah. So it's not just plain, but you get more protein and more fat.
70% になるとファットがなくなるので、プロテインと、スターチだけになる。
So you polish more 70%. Now you get only protein
とスターチ。
and starch. So rice is starch and fish is protein. So fat is eliminated.
で今度はもっと磨くと、今度はプロテインも半分ぐらいになって、もうほとんどスターチだけになる。
So 50% or more, which is daiginjo quality. Now you get starch and only little bit of protein.
でもしこの下のご飯を私たちがお酒を作ってる期間の、発酵期間の3週間ほどこの毎日これを食べなさいって言われたら、多分一番右はものすごくストレスになるよね。
Oh, now let's think about how yeast feel. If yeast is fed only by the starch or only little bit of the protein, the yeast will get stress. Yeast is not getting enough of the protein nor fat. Then how yeast gonna react?
人間も同じに多分この食べ物を3週間この下のメニューだったら右側が一番ストレスになる。
For 3 weeks of sake making period, if you getting the 90% rice,
違うよ。もしこれが人間だったら、
no, どうぞ。
もし人間がここの例を挙げて、もし人間だったらこの3種類の食事の中で一番右側はストレスだよねって3週間毎日同じご飯食べさせられた人間が。
Okay, so if this the case of the human, if you getting only 35% type, only starch and a little bit of protein, you will really stress out.
それと同じことが、お酒でも起こる。
So sake, same thing. Human and sake is same thing.
それからもう一つは、発酵温度の話をしたいんだけど、
Now
いわ
move
ゆる
on to the temperature. There are the futushu and the ginjoshu.
の話なんだけど、これで見ても分かるように大吟醸っていうのは低い温度で、それから、普通の例えば純米酒とかは、ちょっと高い、それより高い温度になるけど、私たち人間も寒い部屋にいるよりは暖かい部屋にいる方がストレスがないと同じように、この彼らも寒いところにいるっていうこと自体が人間と同じようにストレスを感じている。
Ginjo making bring down the fermentation tank temperature low, but futushu, regular kind of sake, bring up the little more higher. So even human, if you are in the warm room, you are comfortable. But if you are putting the cold outside kind of a low temperature situation, it's not comfortable. So for the yeast, yeast is also getting the same feeling.
それがストレスになる。
So it's stress by giving you less protein, which is polishing the rice. And the other way is bring down the fermentation tank low, so you get the stress. So two type of different stress.
のことによってなんとか自分たちの体を守ろうとするためにものすごくこうエネルギーを使おうとして、それによってそのさっき言ってたその呼吸だったりアルコール発酵とかっていうのがもっとこう ものすごくこう早く回るようになる。
So once yeast is put in the difficult situation by lowering temperature or giving the less protein, then yeast try to, in order to survive, it will become more active during the fermentation, which produce the more alcohol.
まあ、まあ、今この、ね、この今言ったその2つのストレスをかけるっていうことによって大吟醸とかはよりこうアロマティックに、そしてストレスがないように作れば作るほどお酒は香りがなくて味わいが深くなる。
So making daiginjo, meaning you giving the stress to the yeast. In order to do so, you get more aroma and sometimes
で、味わいはなんかその
the flavor going to be
シンプル。
simple, more plain.
だけど、純米酒はその逆で、
But on the other hand, Junmaishu,
ストレスをあまりかけないで作
there is
る。
no much stress.
その代わり、そのフレーバーが、タンパク質とかがいっぱいある分、味わいは濃く。
But because there is abundance of protein, so you get more rich, deep flavor.
それが、まあ、いわゆるその酒の作り方の違いだから、これは必ずその、まあ、科学で、まあ、話ができる。
Okay, so everything, the two type of sake, which you prefer, which one you like to make, that's really up to you. However, there is always science behind.
で、まあ、これは最後になるんだけれども、
So
ま
this is
あ
the as conclusion.
まあ、ワインはよくバッカスっていう神様がまあ作ってるって言われるんだけど、まあ、酒は私は微生物が作っていると思っていて、そして微生物がそれぞれ仲良くハーモニーを取ることによって、まあ、うまく作っているんじゃないかなっていう。
So wine is made by the god, but the sake is made by the microorganisms. And microorganisms must work together, make it harmony. Then you will get the good sake. Thank you very much.
You are awesome. Thank you so much for that. Both of you, Chiaki, thank you so much for sharing your information with us. And Tama, thank you so much for translating this entire thing. I really love, and I can't believe it's been a few months now since I've gotten to work with you every day, and I miss the way you describe microbiology, the sort of personification that you add to it. I think the constant comparisons between human biology and microorganisms, it really does help to understand when you're, looking at your fermentation chart and you're saying to yourself, what is going on here and what changes should I make to kind of get something. When you really do put it in your mind, you could say to yourself, yeah, we need to get them more excited, or we need to stress them out in certain ways. So thank you. It's awesome. We have a few questions that have been prepared in advance and some that have come in during this. So I want to answer the ones that came in right off the bat. You had mentioned koku earlier, and they just wanted to clarify the meaning of this sort of body or thickness. We wasn't sure whether or not you were referring to like wine in terms of like the body of the wine, or if you're talking more about like the structure of it, and if there's any distinction you'd make in that.
コクはどっちかというと、なんていうかな、多分赤ワインで来るところのボディ感だと、その下にこう乗ってくる重さとか、そういったものに似てると思う。
It's more similar to the when we talk about the red wine body of the red wine. So it's inside of your mouth. There is a tongue, and then something kind of giving the weight on your tongue. It's is more. I think Chiaki thinks the probably I'm trying to describe.
Um, I think there was one other question that came through as it was going on, which is, could you clarify again? Someone asked the question, essentially, which acids are produced during the aerobic versus anaerobic phase? There seemed to be a little confusion over that, and just kind of wondering if you could give maybe a quick, I don't know if it's a quick answer, but if you could go over once again uh, during the anaerobic phase versus the aerobic phase, specifically as it relates to acids being produced during that time.
そこはものすごく大事なところで、ワインでも実は同じ、ことが起こるんだけど、まずとにかく一番最初はまず酵母の数をまず増やすということがすごく大事だよ。
Okay, so it's also same, also as important for the wine making too. But during the first making process, the most important thing is to multiply the yeast.
まず酵母の数を増やすっていうふうに思ったとき
To
は、
bring up the number of yeast,
必ず呼吸を優位にするというふうに考える。
always you have to make a respiration first.
でその時にはだから呼吸が必要なので酸素が必要な私たちと同じように酸素が必要なのでタンクの中にとにかくかき混ぜてこう酸素を入れるということを考える。
So use your steer the inside of the tank all the time. Make air goes into the fermentation mash
それによって
to let the yeast do the respiration.
それによってそのその種が体の中に、入ってくる種が糖を取り込んで酵母はそのエネルギーを使って酵母が糖を取り込んでそして自分たちでさらに子供を増やすという行動に出る。
So let the yeast take in the sugar into their body and then multiply themselves. それでどうアシッドが違う。
その時にはだから酸もすごく作られる。その工程では酸も、
So
オーガニックアシッド。
during the respiration period, many the acid will be produced.
アシッド、オーガニックアシッド。
Organic acid will be produced.
で、今度は数が増えたら次の段になる。次の段はアルコール発酵しなくちゃいけないから十分数が増えたらもうタンクは触らない方が本当はいいと。
So once there's enough yeast produced within the tank, the basic rule is don't touch the tank. You stop stirring inside.
もうその頃になると、麹の酵素で米も溶けてくるから自然にこう中がこう液体化してくるので自然に中がぐるぐる勝手に回るようになるから人間がいちいちこう回す必要がない。
At that point, koji enzymes already, start breaking down the starch. So you don't have to, circulate inside of the tank by your hand, but rather inside the tank automatically just start circulating.
だから外から空気を入れなくても自然に中はくるくる
No
回って
need
て、
to introduce the air into the tank.
その段階になるとその酵母が増えてくるとその酵母がたくさんいるので過密になってその酸欠になっていくからその酸欠によって自然にアルコール発酵にこう変更していく勝手に向こうは変わっていく。
So because there are so many yeast in the tank, the yeast themselves start cutting off the air, so it will just change it to the different process of fermentation from the respiration. その時にできるアシッドの違いを質問では聞いてるけど、
その時のアシドの違い。
そのレスピレーションとファーメンテーションの。
その時にできるその量が違
実際に
うだけで。
はどういう内容のアシッド？
アシッドは一緒だよ。
Okay, so the acid
4種類は一緒。
created in the respiration and fermentation, the type of acid are the same.
だけど、さっき言ったように、その呼吸の方がより多くのそのエネルギーを取り出すためにこうサークルをたくさん回すので、たくさんその酸ができる。
But
有機
the
酸ができる。
type is the same, but during the respiration period, because there's a high energy involved, so much activity, meaning more acid produced.
だから、例えばちっちゃなブルワー、ホームブルワーの場合は、ものすごくタンクがちっちゃいので、そのただでさえ酸素がこう毎日覗いちゃうと、酸素にそのマッシュがこう常に当たってる状態になって、なかなかカーボンダイオキサイドがその出てくると、普通はそのマッシュの上にこうカーボンダイオキサイドの膜というか層ができるんだけど、そのちっちゃいタンクで、ホームブルワリーをやった場合、タンクの上をこう覗くたびにこうそのせっかくできた二酸化炭素が逃げてってその酸素が接触しちゃうので、その呼吸が優位になってどうしても酸が多い酒になっちゃう。
Okay, so this is a kind of challenging because for me, because Chiaki is trying to make a comment for the home brewer. Your tank is much smaller than what the tank used by commercial brewer. So small tank, and also you are so eager to make a good sake. You like to monitor the tank often, so many times by opening the lid again. So meaning you introduce more air into the tank. So because tank is small and the CO2
カーボンダイオキサイド。
or carbon dioxide produced by tank, there are the thin layers of carbon dioxide at the top of the tank. But every time you move the lid, the layer will be disturbed or break down. So you introduce more air into the tank, which means let the yeast going back to the respiration stage.
だから酸が多く。
So that's why your small tank produce more acid. So outcome is sake with more acidity.
分かった？
Thank you.
Enough?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good. We'll try to hit a few easier ones for you here too. There was one question here about, is there a type of sake you would recommend for beginners, like a specific style of sake? I think we have talked about this in the past. So
それはやっぱり2つの理由があって、普通の純米酒をまずトライするべきだと思う。一つは酵母がアメリカとかの場合は日本から7号と9号しか来てないので、手に入りやすい酵母がなかなかちょっとこうアロマティックに作るのが非常に難しいということと、あとは、温度をすごくこう低くコントロールしなくてもいいので、作りやすい。
Okay, so for the beginner, should try make the junmaishu. The reason is you probably have access only to the number 7 and the number 9 yeast from Japan. So those traditional type of yeast produce less aroma, and also the temperature. You don't really need to bring down especially low temperature. So that's why you should try the junmaishu first.
だけどその時に、発酵の温度を絶対に18度より上げないことが大事かもしれないと最近私は。
But even you are trying to produce a junmaishu, don't bring up the temperature above 18 degrees Celsius.
それより上がるとなぜだかはわからないんだけれども、ちょっとぬか漬けのような、なんか米の外側の匂いがすごく強く。
If you bring up a temperature above 18 degrees Celsius, then you get the undesired flavor of nuka kusai, nuka, or nuka miso, tasty kind, which is mostly consists of outside of rice, the skins and
だ
the
けど、本当はだから
mineral
磨いてる
produce.
からそのものはしないのになぜかしてくる。
So
普通は磨いてるお米を使ったら出てこない。
yeah, she doesn't know why, because the rice is already polished. Why there is a smell exists of the rice skin or outside minerals? Why? We don't know, but you can feel it. So don't bring the temperature above 18 degrees Celsius.
I know you mentioned before kijoshu being an option. Is that something that you want more time to kind of figure out and put together like a recipe for people to try to follow?
うん。
Yeah.
Yes, yes. うん。
Okay.
Yeah, because if the 18 degrees is Celsius is kind of hard to control. But if the final stage we add in the water, instead of the water we add the sake, and suddenly yeast get the higher alcohol and they get stressed and their activity is very going down so quickly, and then their fermentation is very slow. So if the above the 18 degrees Celsius, we cannot get we don't get nuka flavor. So taste is really good.
Yeah.
That is home brewer is easy to make.
Yeah. I know. I love how the experiments you've done on that, it basically just to reword what you just said, in that if you place that alcohol in, you still are providing stress to the microorganisms, to the yeast, but you don't have to worry about temperature control as much. So for home brewing, it's extremely easy to produce, or more easy to produce than it were to if you needed to buy temperature control equipment or something like that. So people that have an area of their house that's like 18.
Anyway, some kind of stress they
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
So if the temperature is going down is a one kind of stress, and then polishing rice is one kind of stress, and also added the sake as a one kind of stress. So many stress we can get to the microorganism. Maybe we should looking for another stress maybe, and then we control the inside of the tank, the microorganism. That means we can get good quality of sake.
I did actually hear someone, I don't know where I read this, but someone did post a question asking if you know of any brewers that are using pressure, specifically like pressurized tanks, to create that kind of stress rather than either high sugar or low temperature. Like, in other words, fermenting at maybe 15 degrees, but adding pressure to the tank so that the yeast are experiencing stress.
それも of course, yeah, 多分そういう可能性が高いと思う。それの
Yes,
も可
we
能性。
think also it's possible.
とにかくストレスをかけるという何が知らないけど何がストレスになるのかということを常に考えてほしい。
Yeah, we can find out probably many more ways of adding stress to the yeast.
それがすごく大事なんだと。
So to find out is also our way to go. Yeah.
Awesome. We had a question on here, and I know that it's not typical. I haven't often seen pasteurization units, in other words, PU units, PU described in Japan, but the question was asking, is there a specific level, like temperature level, or it's hard to maybe translate, but temperature over time for pasteurizing sake? Is there like a specific hiire temperature and time that will guarantee sake is completely pasteurized?
まず、ちょっと待って、ファーレンハイトはわからないんだけど、そのセルシウスで言うと、70度でまずアルコールが蒸発するよ。
70度でね。
うん
Okay. So I think Lucas gonna change it to the Fahrenheit, but at the temperature of 70 degrees Celsius,
アルコールエバポレイ
the alcohol will be
start to
evaporated.
evaporate.
Yeah, alcohol start evaporating at the
だから
temperature of 70 degrees Celsius.
だから絶対にその温度にいかな
So
いことがまず
don't go into the 70 degrees Celsius because alcohol start evaporating.
だけど60度までは酵素が生きることができるっていうのが事実。
So up to at the 60 degrees, the enzyme can be exist.
だからさっき言ったように60度から70度の間なんだけれども、私が一番リコメンドするのは63度という温度を一瞬だけ通ることだ。
So between 60 and 70 degrees is actually the theoretically ideal, but my recommendation, Chiaki's recommendation is 63 degrees. Passing 63 degrees only very short timing,
そしてす
only
ぐに
short
温度を
timing,
下
and
げるだけ
then
だ。
quickly bring down the temperature.
氷
So
とか
just
使って
reach the 63 degrees once and then quickly cool down.
なんでかって言ったら、それは酵素を殺すためで、酵素は化学反応なので、その瞬間的に終わるっていうか、その瞬間的にその温度を経過したらすぐにこう化学反応なので、すぐに死んでしま
So
う。
killing the enzyme meaning just the chemical reaction. So when chemical reaction takes place, it's just just one point, it just changes. So you don't have to keep the temperature for some time. Once chemical reaction happens, it's just the instantly. So meaning just go to reach the 63 degrees once and then quickly cool down.
で、酵母を殺すという目的も、まあ、火入れにはあったりするんだけど、
Also, the hire has a meaning of killing the yeast.
そう、yeast itself。
Yeast itself.
だけど、もう20日間アルコール発酵して、アルコールが16度以上になってると、もうほとんど酵母は死んでないけど、なんか死んでるみたいな感じ。
Okay, so remember we spent 20 days doing let the yeast ferment. So the yeast at the end of the 20 days, the yeast is already kind of weakening, and they not quite dead yet, but they are almost kind of a dead stage, which is not so active at after 20 days of fermentation period.
だからもしその例えば酒の中に1個か2個の酵母がいたとしても、それを殺すためにこう何秒もかけるっていうのはあまりナンセンスなんじゃない。
So in order to killing the yeast, because even because the yeast is tired and weakened, and so if there is only one or two yeast still alive within the sake, what the meaning of just killing the just only one or two yeast by spending the few seconds of heating up the sake?
だから
Chiaki thinks there's no meaning to do it.
そのコマーシャル酒ブルワーの場合はおそらくなんかこうフィルターでその酵母をまず取って、そして酵素を殺すだけの目的で、酵素の働きを止めるだけの目的で火入れをしているから、まあ、瞬間的に63度だけど。
So for the commercial brewer, probably they are taking out the yeast by filtration rather than
ペ
heating,
ーパーフィルターとか。
using the paper filter to take out the yeast. And then the heat process is just for use for the killing the enzyme.
だからまあ63度ですぐに。
So 63 degrees and also only just instant time, and there's no meaning of just keeping that temperature for some time.
だけど、まあそうなんだけど、でも実はうちの会社はフィルターを何も使ってないけど、それで再発酵したことは一回もない。
Okay, so I explained the theory. In actual situation in Hawaii, island sake, we
Never
not we not using any sort of a filtering system. So, but we never had a secondary fermentation
うん
in the bottle.
何も入れなかったので、
So,
だから63度までいけば瞬時で大丈夫なんですよ。いうふう
so
に言ってるのはそのためよ。
So that's why Chiaki is saying 63 degrees. Once you pass that temperature, should be enough. We never had any problem. Once we bring up the 63 degrees.
So let's see. A couple other questions on here. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick through the ones you've already answered. We talked about this a little bit before the call because someone had actually asked us one, but was there a better koji growing pattern for koshu? In other words, something that you're going to age specifically?
うんで
古酒用の麹の作り方っていうのは何かあるんでしょうか。
あんまりないと思う。っていうのは、作り方はだからさっき言ったように、少しそのアミノ酸を多く作るとか、あとは古酒なので、普通のなんていうかな、ちょっと力のあるような、そのタンパク質を分解する酵素をたくさん作るような、例えばひかみもやしみたいなやつを使って作ったらいいんじゃないかな。
Okay, she doesn't have any particular technique used for the koji making for the aging sake. Probably the only thing is more 何を作る？
例えばひかみもやしみたいな感じ。
For example, using the hikami moyashi to more
強アミノ酸を多く作る。
yeah, to produce the amino acid more by using the hikami moyashi. That's probably only recommendation she can make.
だけど、古酒もどんなスタイルによるかによるよね。例えば
Yeah,
すごい
depending on what type of koshu we talking about,
ものすご
it's
く
really different.
ものすごくこう醤油に似たようなというか、中国の紹興酒に似たような味わいの古酒にもなるし、もっと言ったら大吟醸がちょっとこう腫れたような感じのライトな感じになる場合もあるし。
Okay, so the koshu can be the very heavy flavor like closer to shoyu, or daiginjo kind of losing the flavor, making to be light taste of the daiginjo. Both we call it aged sake. So I don't know which direction you like to go.
That's okay. I'm sure it's a whole topic unto itself, but there was one question here I thought you'd enjoy, which is when using Saccharomyces cerevisiae strains that are adapted for winemaking, would you recommend co-pitching that with another sake yeast? Let me just make sure I have the question right. Yeah. How would you, so if you were to use a wine yeast that could be used for sake making, in other words, it's a good wine yeast for sake making, would you normally pitch that and combine it with a sake yeast as well? And if you do, how would you approach that process?
だからワインの中に優秀な酵母がいるとして、それを酒の製造に使うときに常にその酒の酵母を組み込むことにがいいと思いますかって。もしそうするんなら、そのプ
Yeah,
ロセ
I
スはど
think
うやる
I think you can use wine yeast itself, but
あ
but uh, you should check the commercial wine yeast. If there is PO minus, so PO plus, PO minus is that they said in the commercial the wine yeast. So you should use a PO minus. That is off flavor is like the chemical taste like a smoky flavor. So if the
You mean,
PO
yeah.
plus is if the use, you can make very smoky sake.
Does that mean that it produces that wine yeast produces 4 vinyl glycol?
So
Uh,
for
VG.
vinyl glycol, yeah,
あ
ができる。だ
OK。
から PO マイナスっていう風に書いてある酵母だったら単体でも使えてアルコールが15ぐらいまでいけるんじゃないかな。
So you can just use the wine yeast alone, and then whenever you're choosing the wine yeast, you should pick something says PO minus, and then with just wine yeast alone, you can probably bring up alcohol content to the 15%.
ぐらいまでいくんじゃない。
Yeah, probably you can reach that point.
白ワイン用がいいんですかね。
Yeah, choose the yeast for the white wine
低い温度に。
because the yeast can survive at low temperature.
I don't know if you want to talk a lot about this one topic, but I know you've mentioned it a lot in the past, which is the difference in hard water versus soft water, in terms of how sake ages, or how long. What's a good way of asking it? Um,
硬水軟水で
how
どれ
the how the pressed sake will behave differently after fermentation.
That is very good question. But もし香水なら、
If
多
you
分香水ならものすごく発酵が強くて、そして味も強くなり、
okay, hard water, the fermentation is more active and the taste is stronger.
ね、ソフトウォーターはその逆なんだけ
So
ど、
soft water is the opposite.
で、その通常でも、まあ、一般的に、まあ、日本で言われてるような、日本は水がソフトウォーターとか言ってるけど、それでも発酵終了後に、プレス終了後5日以内に火入れしないとも味が変わってくるというふうに一般的には言われている。
So in Japan, they claim mostly using the soft water. However, after you press the sake, you should partialize within 5 days. Otherwise, the taste is gonna change.
って言うけど、でもハワイは全然変わらないから、
But in our case, in Hawaii, the taste doesn't change. So
それは多分もしくは超軟水、スーパーソフトウォーター。
So probably in Hawaii we using soft water, but probably more like a super soft water we using in Hawaii.
その代わり発酵はすごく緩い。
However, our fermentation is very weak. It's not strong. Or window is strong.
Well, that might be a good opportunity to let you both enjoy the rest of your day. We're a little bit past time anyway, and I guess the best thing to say, I don't see too many other questions here. I might just be missing it in the chat. But just want to say thank you, Chiaki, so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Tama, again, thank you so much for participating in this. And thank you for doing this first one. I mean, we had no idea how this was going to go. So I really appreciate you taking the time to, put all this information together and being the first to share your knowledge. I know you know so much more than what you can tell us in just 60 minutes, but we appreciate starting somewhere. And so, to everyone who's still watching and everyone who's going to see this later, when you have more questions, something comes up that you heard a topic and you wanted to know a little bit more, go ahead and message us. We want to know all the topics because even if we don't address them today, we're going to keep doing these at least once a month. That's the pace we want to keep it right now. It feels good to kind of keep so everyone can actually attend. You don't feel like you have to miss them all the time. And yeah, so when you think of something, throw it our way. Please join the Discord if you have any questions. I'm going to put the slide up next. There's a QR code, so go ahead and scan that and you can come on in. And also the dates for the next two are up, April 14th and May 12th. Dr. Chiaki Takahashi, thank you so much. Tama Hirose, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yane.
Thank you.
Thank you.